giving honor to Bishop Knight and all of the rest of the leadership there at New Jersey 3rd. I don't feel like a guest. I've been there several times. And as has been shared, I'm a son of Cedric, so I feel right at home with you all tonight. Thank you for this opportunity to share briefly about what is a really important subject, I think particularly for such a time as this, and which is, I understand we're going to title it, The Value of Community Engagement. Some of you have already taken some coursework on it through the organization City to City that I used to work for, serving there as the Assistant Director of Training for a couple of years. So it will be maybe just a refresher for some of you, some new information for others. Many of you already know that this is a subject that we could spend an entire semester discussing. So tonight is just going to be like a brief overview to whet your appetite and just give a high level summary. I think you might be able to see what I'm briefly going to share tonight, maybe in 3 parts. Just one, just kind of seek to make a case for the value, the importance of community engagement today, particularly for those of us that are serving in cities. I'm in New York City, and I know several of the pastors there are serving in urban environments that are affiliated with New Jersey 3rd as well. So one, just make a case for the value of community engagement. 2, I just want to give you a little bit of insight of some of the fruit that is born in the work that we've been doing here in Brooklyn at our ministry. And then 3rd, just a real quick flyby of a framework that's helpful in thinking about taking even initial steps in doing and being involved in community engagement. So I have a slide presentation prepared for you. Let me throw that up. Let's see here. Throwing this up. Move this over. All right, Saints, can you all see this? Hopefully it's visible. All right, good, excellent. So again, the value of community engagement. If you have something to take some notes with, you may want to do so, whether you have some paper or pull out your iPad or your note app on your phone, because there may be just some helpful nuggets you might want to jot down. And I think I'm going to try and leave some time for questions at the end. So let me jump into this. So we all know the world is radically changing, whether we're talking about the pandemic, even my presentation on Zoom tonight kind of speaks to how our world has changed. And quite frankly, I found that I have friends, no matter what type of work they're doing, they're rethinking the way they should go about business, that they recognize it's no longer business as usual. And you see the second bullet point, I would say that our church, our task as the church involves recognizing that in light of all of this change, while the timeless message of the gospel remains the same, like almost every other sector of business in our world, everyone's reexamining their methods and the models that they might need to reexamine and change to be effective going forward in this new normal, if you will. I think one key part of looking at how to kind of move forward in this moment is kind of related to trying to manage continuity and change. I would say that this is one of the keys to being long-lasting as a church, and I would even go beyond that to say that it's probably one of the keys to growth as a church. And that is, again, managing continuity and change. You see the second and third bullet point. I wonder what you all might think about this. I would love to be in the room to kind of ask you. So that second bullet point, if you change what you should continue, you'll lose your identity. And we all know in the Church of God in Christ, there's certain things that are key to our identity: holiness, prayer, right? Those are key and central to who we are as the Church of God in Christ. So those are things that we should continue no matter what happens in the exterior world. But then the third bullet point, right, says, but if we continue what we in fact should change, we risk becoming irrelevant. So I think what I'm kind of framing this discussion about community engagement within the context of the things that we need to change and being more attentive to community engagement as one of the strategies that we need to be doing with a level of intentionality for such a time as this, if you will. So if you look, many of you probably have seen this illustration before. It kind of like is an illustration of the organizational cycle, the life cycle of an organization. And if you see, right, every organization, whether it's a church or a business, has a period of startup, where the business or the church is launched. It has a period of growth. But every organization, including every church, reaches a point where it reaches in its life cycle the stage of maturity. But what happens, as you see here, right, it grows, it reaches its pinnacle, if you will, and if something doesn't happen at this point, kind of at the apex, if as what happens in businesses, they call it from business language, if a brand refresh doesn't occur. In other words, if there's not a re-examination or a refreshing or a re-envisioning of the mission of that business, and in the case of churches, a re-envisioning of the original call that God placed on the church, and an examination of what needs to be done to live into that mission and vision in a new moment in history, then what can happen is, as you see, if that doesn't happen, you can see decline will happen. Many of you, I don't know if they were in New Jersey, the Blockbuster Video company was predominant, and they didn't recognize the shift from videotapes and CDs to streaming. And then that we no longer have Blockbuster Video in New York City. Netflix took over the market as a result of Blockbuster not being sensitive to the shift in technology from DVDs to streaming video. Same thing can happen in every organization. So what needs to happen, right, is a revisioning, a re-examining of our methods and our models. And if that happens, we have the opportunity not to begin to go in decline, but to actually see a new spurt of growth happen. And I think this is a possibility for many of our churches. Many of our churches in the denomination are at that place of maturity. And if we don't kind of look at our methods, then we could end up going in decline. But there's an opportunity, I believe, to look at our methods, and the pitch I'm making here is, I'll put it all on the table, is a pitch for us seriously considering community engagement as a strategy that will help us reinvigorate, not only reinvigorate our ministries, but also serve our surrounding communities in new and important ways. So, but I think community engagement, and I'd be curious if getting some feedback from someone, whether you believe this, but I would say that community engagement involves a shift in the way that we think about church. I think it means we should engage the world the same way that Jesus did. And what I'm alluding to is that it's not just reaching out, but actually by going out into the world. That's what's involved. That's the shift involved in being attentive to community engagement. I know Pastor Javon and others probably have read this book. I would encourage you write the name of this book down. This is a helpful small book entitled "Surprise the World" by Michael Frost. I think it's only probably $11 or $12, but packed with really good information for those of you that want to kind of get some initial insights about what it means to begin to incorporate community engagement into our individual lives and into the collective life of our churches. Here's a quote from Michael Frost that's, I think, points to what he's seeking to get across in the book. He says, if our habits as Christians are merely going to church and attending meetings, then it's not going to connect us with unbelievers, nor invite curiosity about our faith. He writes, I believe the key is to equip believers to see themselves as sent ones, to foster a series of missional habits that shape our lives and values, and that ultimately propel us into the world with the gospel. So I think this is the core of what he seeks to share in the book. I highly recommend it. Small little book. You could probably read it in 2 or 3 hours, but packed with tons of good information. So pick this up if you have any interest in delving a little bit deeper into what it means to begin to lean into community engagement. So here's just a little bit about, I want to share just a little bit about some of the fruit that our ministry in Brooklyn has seen as a result of us taking community engagement seriously. This is just a list of some of the community partners that we've developed, partnerships that we've developed in Brooklyn as a result of leaning into and taking seriously community development. Gowanus Mutual Aid, we've partnered with them on toy drives and coat drives in Brooklyn. We've been working very closely with the Tenants Association and Gowanus Public Housing in Brooklyn. St. Lydia's is another small church that we've partnered with. The Brooklyn Circus is actually a men's lifestyle brand. The owner is a Haitian brother. He's not a Christian, but he has, as a result of us developing a relationship, has invited me into the family at Brooklyn Circus, and I'm known as Pastor Cedric in their circles. And Brother Ouija probably has a key gatekeeper for a large segment of the African-American creative population in downtown Brooklyn. And we've partnered on some things together. And actually, he just had his first child, and I know I'm probably going to be asked to christen his first child. The Soapbox Gallery is owned by a Jewish brother who has been, the Lord has touched his heart, and we have partnered on a number of various projects together. And I'll jump down to the last one, Trinity Church Wall Street Philanthropies. Trinity Church Wall Street, and I listed them primarily because we got on their radar as a result of the community engagement work that we've been doing, right? And as a result of us getting on the radar regarding our community engagement work, Trinity Church Wall Street invited us to apply for a grant, and we were awarded a small grant of $50,000 directly connected to the community engagement work that we've been doing in Brooklyn. So this is just some fruit that we've been seeing as a result of us with a level of intentionality doing this work. Here's some pictures. Here's a picture from one of our events. You can see our Caucasian sister closest to you. She identifies as queer, and she's from London, but the Lord is working on her heart, and she has become part of the family of Kinetic as a result of our community engagement work. Here's another event. We're in downtown Brooklyn, so it's multiracial and multicultural, though we're predominantly African American. But again, one of the things we did by way of being committed to community engagement. Oh, so this is a picture of the brother on the left in the striped shirt. His name, that's Ouija Theodore that I alluded to. He has two stores, one in Brooklyn and one in Soho. And this was an event that was held at his store in Brooklyn, where after a performance, I was asked to come and kind of talk about spirituality and the creative arts after the performance. And one more. Oh, and this is the person in the middle. This is Jimmy Greenfield. He's the Jewish brother that owns the Soapbox Gallery. And this is a group photo that we took during one of the events that we had at Jimmy's gallery in Brooklyn. So I just wanted to let you know that fruit has been born from being committed to community engagement. It's not just theoretical. It's not just book knowledge. Wanted to share with you just a few photos so you can see that from a commitment to this work, God is helping us see fruit be born and the church grow as a result of the community engagement work that we've been doing in Brooklyn. So this is this scripture is probably familiar to Pastor Javon and others that have been involved at the work at City to City. Colossians 4:2-6 is a foundational text upon which a framework has been developed that I'll just give you a real quick look at in a second. But the passage reads, continue steadfastly in prayer, being watchful in it with thanksgiving. At the same time, pray also for us, that God may open to us a door for the word, to declare the ministry of Christ, on account of which I am in prison, that I may make it clear, which is how I ought to speak. Walk in wisdom toward outsiders. Make the best use of the time. Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person. And based on this text to a good degree, this is a framework for community engagement that we utilize when teaching the subject matter. And as you see, it has kind of four components: intercede, engage, invest, and invite. So by intercede, we mean the first thing that we're called to do is to pray for our communities, pray for our neighborhoods, pray for whomever God has called to call us to serve, to first bathe the community in prayer. Then the second phase involves engaging various organizations in the community and developing relationships, and not doing a lot of talking, but primarily listening and observing and connecting. Then the third part involves investing, beginning to partner, beginning to collaborate, adding value, meeting felt needs, and building relationships until the community sees you or your church as an insider. So there's a question to ask yourself. Do your neighbors and other key people in the neighborhood see your church as an insider? Does the community see you as an insider? If next week your church wasn't there, would the community know that you're gone, right? So these are key ways to kind of monitor and engage that relational capital, but you get it by investing in phase 3. And then you see phase 4, invite. So you may be thinking that, oh, Dr. Johnson, you made a typo. All of the rest are highlighted in red and this is in gray. No, that's on purpose, because too often, out of our desire for folks to know Christ, we jump straight to invite, right? But often, if we do that, we lose them if we have not built up relational capital through being involved in community engagement. So one of the things that we always have to do in utilizing this model is make sure, and you all have heard this statement before, that people quite often don't want to hear what you have to say until they know that you care. So that's what's involved in steps 1, 2, and 3. Interceding, engaging, investing, and resisting the urge to invite. Of course, not unless the Holy Spirit just moves upon you that this soul has already prepared to hear the gospel, but to be careful that the proper intercession, engagement, and investment happens so we don't prematurely lose a soul by inviting them prematurely. So just to unpack that a little bit more, by intercede, pray that God would make the hearts and minds of the people in your community receptive. Ask God to give you insight into his plans for your community. And then ask God for open doors and opportunities to love and serve in your community. So here's some more higher level of specificity regarding the type of prayers we should be praying in the intercede part of the community engagement process. Then engage. I know those of you that have been exposed to the curriculum at City to City have heard this. Get involved with community-based organizations already practicing good neighboring, those that are already helping with clothing distribution, neighborhood cleanups, Christmas toy drives. Participate in events and community associations. The Parent Teachers Association is a wonderful way to begin to get involved in community engagement. Or as I noted that we've done, gotten involved with the Tenants Association in one of the public housing projects in the community in which we serve. But again, remember, initially prioritize listening and learning. Seek to build relationships, again, until the community sees you as an insider. So if I was there, I would have had prepared probably copies of this handout. And as an exercise, if I was there in person, probably would have had you all sit down and maybe scribble on this handout in the blank circles, well, what are to actually think about? Write down some specific organizations, some specific community spaces that you might engage as part of this outreach to the community. So even now, I invite you to do it, to give us thought to what are some, is there a neighborhood school, right? A barbershop, right? A dry cleaners, right? What are some of the organizations, community-based organizations? So by way of first step, yeah, take a moment, make note of it now, jot down 1 or 2 or 3 of them even now that come to mind, because invariably the Spirit is bringing one of those spaces to mind. A cafe, one of the spaces that I intentionally spent a couple of hours in every week was the local coffee house, like 3 blocks from my house. And it got to the point that the baristas there knew me by name. Oh, Pastor Cedric is here. And I'm not lying when I tell you that I probably met at least 1/4 of the people that would end up becoming new members I met by spending time in that coffee house a few hours every week. That new members ended up coming to our church just as a result of doing some work there, having a cup of coffee there. So likewise, think about what those organizations, what those spaces might be for you all to be part of a community engagement strategy. And then you move from engagement to kind of a deeper level of involvement with invest, where you're beginning now to support and collaborate with either people or community-based organizations that are already in the community, with a heart of humility and a posture of a servant. You're getting involved in opportunities that add value. And this is key, right? Let me slow down here. You're looking for opportunities that either add value, that meet a felt need in the community, or in some way serves the people in that community. Those are kind of the particular opportunities you're looking for as part of a community engagement strategy. And then I'm always looking for opportunities to promote justice, beauty, healing, and hope. If you want to get some young adults in your church, think about how you incorporate justice ministry into the church. All of our young people, all of our young adults are concerned about justice. So if you want to attract young adults, think about what are the injustices in the community. What are some ways you can incorporate justice-related ministries into the church, and you will engage young adults. Similarly, opportunities for healing and hope. There's a lot of still unresolved grief and loss and trauma coming out of the pandemic. So think about ways that you could incorporate not just kind of the way we would do it if we were in-house, but some type of a healing service that could be designed in such a way that the whole community might be invited to it. So I offer those as suggestions as part of a community engagement strategy. And then as I'm about to kind of close, the very last thing you get to is invite. All of the other stuff you want to really be important to do, not just from a transactional perspective, not that so, and by transactional, I mean, you're not doing it primarily to get people into the church. You're doing it because of God's mandate to love one another and to love our neighbors as we love ourselves, right? And then from that gospel-driven, gospel-focused mandate, loving others and investing in them and investing in our communities. Last but not least, you move to the invite. I'll just throw this up here because I could talk a whole couple of sessions on the things we need to think about when we're kind of gotten to this phase of being the soil has been tilled, right? And the seeds have been planted. And now we see it's time to kind of fruit begin to be born by way of inviting people into our spaces. So you see 3 bullet points, right? What are you gathering people with is a question that will need to be answered. What are you gathering people to? And then what do you do with people as you gather them? Are all 3 critical questions that must be answered that we'll have to unpack for another day. But I just wanted to put those questions in front of you for now. So kind of by way of conclusion, right? You ultimately, and again, this is another handout that I probably would have copied and given to you if we were there live. So take a look at it. Maybe try and do at least get it in your mind or make a rough sketch out of it. But you basically see, right, as I've kind of outlined so far, everything, right, is grounded in prayer. Prayer is the central theme that runs through everything. But again, moving from initially interceding and praying for our communities to then beginning to engaging, right, to investing, to inviting, and then from inviting, we now have people attending. And I have another slide where all of these blank lines are filled in as part of the ministry that I'm a part of, our own particular pathways. So as you're kind of looking at doing community engagement with a level of intentionality, you too will begin to like, okay, these are the ways that we intercede. I didn't even talk about like prayer walks, actually teams from the church actually doing a prayer walk in a community is something that might end up going here. And then the organizations that you end up engaging, the community-based organizations you end up investing in, how your strategy of inviting. So all of that we need to break out at another time when we have a bit more to kind of get into the specifics of community engagement. But I think Bishop just wanted me to kind of encourage you all, give you an overview, let you see some of the fruit that has come from our ministry and being involved in community engagement. And I'll stop there and take any questions, comments that anybody might have, even though I know I apologize that it was a really fast overview, but I'll stop right there. Questions? Everyone inspired, ready to go out and do community engagement?
Just for the sake of time.
Yes, I was asking, is there any other framework that is used to show what is working and what is not working?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question because as it relates to what works, that's going to be connected to the particularities of your community, right? What might work in one community might not be appropriate in another. So like if for any church that wanted to kind of delve into community engagement, it really involves like doing a good mapping. Like for instance, one of the first steps would be mapping who are the organizations, who are the people involved already in the community doing good neighboring or good work, right? So the strategies for community engagement in different communities are going to look different, right? So yeah, that's really a very good question in light of the fact that each community engagement strategy is going to end up being contextualized and looking different depending upon, again, right, the felt needs of that community, right, and so forth and so on. So that's a really good question.
Bishop Kevin Knight, Senior, and New Jersey 3rd Jurisdiction, we thank you for participating in this virtual forum on tonight. God bless you. May heaven smile upon you. And we'll see you again next time in person.
Thank you, my friend. Look forward to it. God bless you, saints. Take care.